Because of the pandemic, according to a Gallup poll, 1 out of 10 families are now homeschooling. I don't blame them. If I had school-aged children, I most likely would too, as I don't feel sending children to school in person is safe where I live. If you do send your children to school, though, please do not feel that you are failing to protect your children. The decision to keep your children home or send them to school is a difficult one, and there are many factors involved. You may not be equipped to homeschool. This may not be feasible for your family. You may live in an area where the pandemic has not hit hard, and it may be perfectly safe for you to do so. So no judgment here. One group that is taking advantage of the increase in homeschooling is Answers in Genesis. They recently published a video peddling their homeschool curricula and pointing to their free website for kids. Kids' material can't be expected to be completely accurate. You do have to leave out parts that children aren't ready for, either because of emotional immaturity or because they don't have the academic base to understand the full picture. We expect AIG to present their viewpoint, and where that viewpoint is reasonably compatible with reality and what kids should be learning in school, this is acceptable. But when that material crosses the line to outright lies, it's intolerable. So what does AIG want you to teach your children? Stay tuned to find out. Hello and welcome. I was overwhelmed by the response to the video with Vice Rhino on Ray Comfort. I am very appreciative to all my new subscribers. I did get a chuckle out of my appeal to get 750 subscribers and was way past that point by the time I released, from those of you who saw the early release from the link in part 1 from Vice Rhino. An announcement to my patrons. Next month, I will begin charging for videos again. I need to upgrade my computer. It has a 3i processor and it keeps slowing down and sometimes crashing toward the end of editing videos. I also need to get myself a green screen. I'd like to do some experimenting with backgrounds. So if you became a patron for the support when I wasn't charging, please feel free to withdraw support. I understand perfectly, as the pandemic has hit some people much harder than others. So with that out of the way, let's look at how AIG wants you to indoctrinate your kids through homeschooling.
Hi, and welcome to Homeschool Quick Tips. I'm Dr. Georgia Purdom. This is Dr. Jennifer Rivera, and we are two homeschool moms with a lot of experience that also work as part of the team here at Answers in Genesis to help develop programming and resources for the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. And so the purpose of this program is to help you know how you can incorporate that programming, those resources, and so much more that Answers in Genesis has to offer into your homeschool. So today we're going to be talking about the website. Okay, now there is a lot of things that we can talk about here. So Jennifer, you want to talk a little bit about what's on here?
Yeah, so our Answers for Kids website is just, what's great is it's arranged by what you kind of are looking for. So if you're looking for answers, right, you can just click on the answer button, all right? And once you get there, it is arranged by topic. And so we all know that kids love animals. So let's go check out what it says for animals. And once you click on that animal topic, then you're going to find it's broken down by animal. So, so if
let's say we go to bugs, let's go study bugs.
Oh yeah, we love bugs,
Jennifer,
right?
Yeah.
Insects,
Jennifer
right?
doesn't like bugs,
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have lots of topics on like bees. Okay, even bee spit. Most kids will be very interested in bee spit, I'm sure.
So far, so good. The website has lots of free resources, so they seem to just want to help out homeschooling parents. So let's take a look at that website. Since they started with bugs, we will too. I'm not big on bugs, but I know someone who is. Oh, BrainBug, want to give me a hand with this? So, BrainBug, thank you so much for coming and helping me debug some of this homeschool material.
Oh, yeah, it's no problem at all. I'm happy to be here. And
Which of the bugs would you like to start with?
these lava crickets,
Okay.
they do kind of pull information from papers. It's just there's a certain spin that's put on it.
I found the information on the lava crickets quite interesting. I'd never heard of lava crickets before.
Oh yeah, that was exciting to learn about. Actually, I looked into lava crickets. There's a couple of different crickets that are referred to as lava crickets. It's because of where they live, their natural habitat. A lot of these are endemic. Now, endemic means that they just live in that location, and specific to volcanic islands. Their ancestors getting there sometimes via floating across on debris, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago, and kind of living in isolation. So it's really an interesting topic to be able to dig into. And when you start getting into island species, there's such variety, and they go in so many different directions depending on the habitat of the islands that they land on. They could be the ones we're going to look at. The lava crickets that they're referring to are specifically live on kind of newly laid down lava after an eruption, when everything is in ruin, kind of a post-apocalyptic landscape for them. Well, let's just read it real quick here. Okay, it's not very long. Remember the lava flows last summer that consumed 700 houses in Hawaii and covered an area half the size of Manhattan? The disaster held many surprises, but one of the biggest was the first outsider to inhabit the desolate landscape. Spoilers, it wasn't a plant. The honor goes to the wingless cricket. No one knows where these crickets came from. We'll talk about that. Or where they went when their work was done, but scientists are eager to know more. Lava crickets aren't generalists. Like most other colonizers on the globe, these specialists appear only on fresh lava flows. They don't even have wings. They live on a bit of rotting vegetation blown in from outside the lava flows and get protein from the ocean foam. Then, when the first plants start to grow, lava crickets disappear. No one knows where they live between eruptions. Well, let's stop there and just gather up what we got so far. So
Okay.
there's a couple of claims that have been made. They are specialists. There's nothing wrong with that claim. They are specialists. They live on flotsam and jetsam, washed up on the beach. These are actually one of the few insects that can thrive in such a saline environment. They don't have any issue living in salt. They are wingless. We don't know where they come from or where they go. We're going to talk about that. But let's go on with finishing reading here, because there's more about that's going to follow up here.
Okay.
Biological research wants to find out how this mysterious Hawaiian native got so successful in such a unique niche. It challenges what biologists thought they knew and shows us more about the ability of animals to repopulate the earth after major destruction and fill new roles after radical changes in the environment. This isn't a case of a cricket becoming some other creature, but an example of the immense diversity designed into God's created kinds to do unexpected things in unexpected places. Such surprises warn us not to rush to conclusions about the limited ability of a few creatures on Noah's Ark to repopulate the earth. After a worldwide flood, God gave his creatures astonishing abilities to adapt quickly to many different roles, including fresh lava on an isolated island. I have the interview that they are citing here. I'm going to pull that up now.
And while you're looking for that, Fran Wilson has a question, and her question is, do lava crickets only appear in Hawaii?
No. Lava crickets, and there's a few different species all over the South Pacific, and there's a couple of different lineages of crickets that are referred to as lava crickets. What they're talking about in this article, I think, just based on the information that we have here, Caconimbus howarthi, which is a species of cave cricket native to Hawaii. Each island, because of the isolation of these Pacific islands, these biomes are very insular. We do see a lot of island evolution. Island giantism is one. There's actually a species that's called lava crickets as well that grows quite large for a cricket. But that's a completely different one. And those ones are called lava crickets because they live in lava tubes. They actually live in the tubes under the ground. And live on the roots of the plants that first colonized after volcanic eruption. These ones we're talking about here are actually down on the sea level. There are other species, and most of them populate beaches. And beaches are pretty rich environments. I mean, they are specialists, like they refer to them here. For these crickets, this is an optimal situation because it's expanding their habitat. The ocean front is extending these long arms out into the sea, and that's where they're getting their food. So it's expanding their habitat. So of course, they're going to be the first species to invade that niche. The claim that we don't know where they come from and where they go, because they come from the beaches and then they go back to the beaches or stay on the lava flow if the habitat's suitable there after things start to take hold. We see the insects eke out existence on decaying plant. The problem is when you get down to the bottom, it leaves out all this stuff about rather rare evolutionary scenario. When they start talking about evolution, AIG tends to drop that part of the article.
It's kind of hard to deny science when you read the whole thing.
Yeah. And with our conclusion here, whatever strategy these lava crickets are employing to become the initial colonizers of one of the most extreme environments on Earth are likely to surprise biologists. That's fine. We are never saying we have all the answers. What we want to say is that we are willing to look. That we're putting in the time, and we got teams going out to these islands and doing these research projects. There was a species of giant walking stick that we brought back from the brink of extinction by doing these research projects. So, if you just say, oh, well, God's just filling in the gaps, it's really, you just let things go. And these scientists that found this walking stick had been extinct for 80 years, and they found it and managed to save it and bring it back from pretty much the brink. And I am doing a video on that this month. So check that out if you like talking about bugs and you like these rare island giant insects.
Now, you wanted to talk about the butterflies too.
All right. The butterflies, yes.
Butterflies and moths evolved about 70 million years before flowering plants, according to researchers' interpretation of new fossil finds. This finding has them speculating how insects with mouth parts designed to suck nectar survived until food evolved for them. On the other hand, if God created flowering plants on day 3 of creation week, as the Bible documents, insects created on day 5 didn't need to tighten their belts for a few millennia while they waited for breakfast.
So this is referencing a finding in some papers that were released in 2018 regarding the evolution of butterflies and how early Lepidopteras kind of showed up on the scene with their sucking mouth parts that they used currently to eat nectar from flowering plants. Obviously, that's what everybody thinks of when they see a butterfly sitting on a flower. And they have a proboscis that they stick down into the flower. Actually, there's been some of our best predictions in the evolutionary field, some of the oldest predictions. A prediction made by Charles Darwin himself was in regards to flowers and their pollinators. So it's very pertinent to evolution that these butterflies and these flowers evolved alongside of each other. Now, Lepidoptera has not always had a proboscis. In the closest clade to Lepidoptera, and I say Lepidoptera, but that's the clade of moths and butterflies. Butterflies are actually a highly specialized clade within Lepidoptera. So they're all butterflies or moths. But they have a close relative called a caddisfly. Now, a caddisfly is very much like a butterfly and moth in its anatomy, and their fossil record goes back to the early Triassic. That's that's before dinosaurs ruled the earth. That we have these caddisflies, and what differentiates caddisflies from most Lepidoptera is their jaws. They actually have chewing mandibles. The mandibles do show up in Lepidoptera, and few select families of moths still retain their jaws when they're in adult form, and that's a neoteny because the jaws are holdover from when they were in their pupal state, when they were caterpillars. So all Lepidoptera will have chewing mandibles in their caterpillar form. They just don't retain it into adulthood, and they grow a proboscis. Now, the theory was that when the butterflies filled these niches of pollinators for these flowering plants that just showed up on the scene, and that was always the running theory, and that's in the Eocn era. That we really saw that diversification However, they found some fossils in the Jurassic fossil beds and kind of examined those, and we see that we have some lepidopterid scales. Butterflies have very distinct chitin scales on their wings that you can't make a mistake on it when you identify one. They're very, very distinct. Now, these showing up as early as the Jurassic, of course, kind of throws a big monkey wrench into the theory about how they evolved alongside flowering plants, because at the time that this animal fossilized, there were no flowering plants to be seen. This does push back the earliest butterflies, and that's perfectly fine. And these very likely had proboscis. But there are butterflies even today, moths even today, that use their proboscis to consume a number of different food sources. One being, let me share this too. Hold on.
Okay. We also have a question from the chat, which is, what is Eocn Era?
It's a time period not that following the extinction of the dinosaurs. I just wanted to clarify that that butterflies use their mouth to drink a lot more of the nectar. These ones here are all amassing on different piles of dung. So those sucking mouth parts are good for a lot of things. And that includes what you see here and what they're doing here. But there's also a species of moth that evolved specifically to drink the tears of birds while they sleep. It's kind of crazy looking. Let's see if I can find a picture of that too. Yeah.
And we have a bit of a smart aleck comment here. So this was after the flood.
Well, when is the flood supposed to have
The
happened?
flood is supposed to be about 4,300 BC.
Okay, then no. This is long before the flood. all before the flood. Everything that all the notable evolutionary events, extinction events, all that stuff. How do they deal with things like ice ages and stuff? Was an ice age just an ice weekend instead? But yeah.
So is that butterfly feeding off of the
tears of the
bird?
Yeah. Bird tears are something special. They have all kinds of utility. There's a species of birds that they'll build their nests with their tears. It's
Interesting.
Yeah, it is quite interesting.
Can birds tear up at will?
The ones that perform those kind of functions, I believe so.
So thank you very much, BrainBug, for helping me out. Thank you for all your expertise on the area of bugs.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
And the next thing we have is activities. And I really like this tab because we have different fun resources that supplement your learning. So you can see where we have quizzes for you. And a lot of these are printables.
Right.
So you could even print them off and maybe use them as some type of assessment.
But when we look at the answers tab and then go to quizzes, there's lots of coloring pages and activity pages. But what do they have to assess your child's academic progress? Nothing. There's a quiz there and there. But as you see, all the quizzes are about the Bible. There's nothing here to assess academic progress, only quizzes on the Bible.
Right, so if we want to go back to the main Answers in Genesis page, and now we're going to click on education, okay? Because that's what we're talking about, right? With homeschooling, we're talking about education. All right, so now we're on the education page. And again, there's a lot of things here, but the first one we're going to go to is
homeschool, right?
That's what we're talking about. All of these will come up. So you can even see like who has signed, who agrees with the tenets of faith. So the marketer, the editors, the writers, all of that. And so some really great curriculum there.
Yeah, you can be confident when you purchase from one of these that, they're going to be biblically sound and there won't be anything, subtly slipped in there, right, that you need to be worried about.
Yeah.
What is it that might be troubling you about children's textbooks? This article from Answers in Genesis, recently rerun on their Twitter, warns parents about the dangers of textbooks. It says, homeschool curricula and Christian colleges don't always live up to their name. You have to look below the surface. It is no secret that Evolutionary teaching about the religion of naturalism runs rampant through public education. The idea that life began evolving on Earth for millions of years is taught as fact from the earliest ages. Kindergarteners are taught that dinosaurs never lived with man. This is actually a rather complicated subject. A simple search yields an emphatic no to the answer to this question, with creationists being the lone hangers-on to the idea that this could actually have occurred. But this fish, the coelacanth, lived in the Jurassic period and was believed to have gone extinct 65 million years ago, until one popped up in 1938, and since then more have been found. Is it a dinosaur? I don't think so, but it is from that era. More proof that humans and dinosaurs did coexist is that they still do today. Birds are dinosaurs. Aaron Ra did a whole series on why birds are dinosaurs, where he destroys the science of the expert from Answers in Genesis on this topic. A link to the playlist is in the description. Ironically, despite AIG claiming that humans and dinosaurs existed together, they deny the evidence of it that exists today. They deny that birds are dinosaurs. Of course, they have to do that, because if they admit that birds are dinosaurs, they must also admit that animals do evolve into different kinds, whatever that is. Back to the article. And high school and biology courses teach that we evolved from single-celled organisms. What is the solution for parents who strongly disagree? Wait a minute. This is directly contradictory to part of the video.
Because you don't want to just present the creation perspective. You want your children to know, well, what do people that believe in millions of years think, and so talk to them about that perspective and then say, well, here's the biblical perspective.
This sounds like they want you to teach your kids a balanced view and give them both sides. I would have no problem with this, especially with older kids. Let them decide for themselves when they have all the facts. The article makes it clear that this is not the case. Further down it reads, "We affirm that the account of the origins presented in Genesis is a simple but factual presentation of actual events and therefore provides a reliable framework for scientific research into the question of the origin and history of life, mankind, the earth, and the universe. We deny that Genesis 1 through 11 is myth, saga, or any other type of non-historical literature. We also deny that it is a parable or prophetic vision. It therefore should be interpreted with the same care for literal accuracy as other historical narrative sections of Scripture." In other words, it's okay to teach your kids about evolution as long as you make it clear that evolution isn't to be believed. And this isn't limited to just young children, and let older children have all the facts. This article is talking about controlling your child's education through the college years as well. Because of the expense of college, parents with the power of the purse often have a great deal of control over where their young adult children go to college. So what should a parent that doesn't believe we evolved from a single-celled organism do? How about stop denying reality and look it up for yourself? We did evolve from single-celled organisms. The only people left denying this are crackpots like the ones Vice Rhino is entertaining us with while simultaneously debunking them, and a few pockets like AIG that appear to be offering you alternative facts. But like the case with Kellyanne Conway, they aren't just another way to look at the facts as they claim. They are downright falsehoods. The theory of evolution has been proven again and again, and it will remain the scientific basis of developmental biology unless something else is discovered to show otherwise. That an ancient book offers mythological tales of another option isn't evidence. There are many ancient stories about how life came to be, but only evolution is supported by observable evidence and provable hypotheses. For many, The plan is to homeschool their kids from kindergarten through senior high and then send them to a Christian college. Easy enough? Right. Not quite. Christian parents have good intentions. Unfortunately, the reality is that Christian curricula and colleges that teach a literal 6-day creation around 6,000 years ago are the exception, not the norm. This would be in keeping with reality. Scientists that accept a literal 6-day creation are also the exception, not the norm. According to a 1997 Gallup poll, 95% of scientists reject young Earth creationism. I found it amusing that Creation Ministries International tries to say that there are numerous scientists alive today or recently deceased that believe in a literal 6-day creation, and then they list them. The fact that they can list them alone is proof that they are an extreme minority. I went to verify what a few of these scientists are saying and quickly noticed that those listed in blue have articles that creation.com has published. I randomly picked a couple that weren't blue to see if they were in fact young earthers. The second one that I checked turned out to be quite interesting. It's Dr. Lionel Dahmer, Analytical Chemistry. Turns out that he is the father of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. I couldn't actually find anything to indicate he's a young Earth creationist, but I don't doubt that he is. Almost everything about him is more about his infamous son than about him. While the father certainly isn't guilty by association, his name on this list really doesn't reflect well on the idea that this is the best way to raise children. The Ministry of Answers in Genesis, where I serve, has looked closely at the curricula and contacted hundreds of schools. AIG found that many homeschool curricula and most Christian colleges promote evolution and hold to various old Earth views. Shocking, isn't it, that homeschool curricula, even from Christian organizations, would teach the prevailing current scientific ideas? I mean, really. Next, you're going to tell us that in English class, they have the audacity to teach English. He goes on to describe his family's experience with homeschooling. In my wife's first week teaching, one of the books referenced sharks predating dinosaurs by millions of years. Another book promoted the idea that the moon broke off from the earth when it was forming millions of years ago. As we looked ahead at other lessons, we recognized the amount of research that would be necessary for us to find a solid curriculum and supplemental reading that gives a biblical perspective on evolution. Translation: a curriculum that taught what we believe, not the prevailing scholarly consensus. Further, we realized that some of the supposedly Christian homeschool companies that we found were simply imprints for a large secular mega publisher trying to make a buck off another market. This article was written by Tim Lutz, and I'm reading his credentials straight from the article. Product distribution specialist with Answers in Genesis. He also serves as content and marketing coordinator for creationcolleges.org and creationpublishers.org websites. Now, to be fair, the information on the college websites is free, but the Creation Publishers website tells you where to buy homeschool material that meets their criteria. So he's complaining about other companies profiting from the sale of their material to his market, and all the while he's selling competing material. So what does something have to say to be acceptable to AIG as homeschool material? Below are 2 key examples of the 12 points that a publisher or officials of the school must affirm to make our list. I gave you one of them earlier out of order in this video. Here's the other. We affirm that the scientific aspects of creation are important, but are secondary in importance to the proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ as sovereign, creator, redeemer, and judge. We deny that the doctrines of Creator and creation can ultimately be divorced from the gospel of Jesus Christ, for the teachings of Genesis are foundation to the gospel and indeed to all biblical doctrines, directly or indirectly. Translation: if it disagrees with the Bible, it can't be true. This goes right along with the pinnacle of the Ken Ham-Bill Nye debate. When asked what would change your mind, Bill Nye said, evidence. Ken Ham said, nothing. Bill Nye takes the scientific approach. I believe what I see, what is testable, what is provable. When that changes, I change my mind. Ken Ham says I keep my eyes shut tight against anything that disagrees with my book. My book is true and you can't change my mind because I refuse to look at anything that says otherwise. Sadly, I understand this reasoning perfectly, as I used to think this way myself. As a church librarian, I accepted for the library only books that affirmed our way of thinking about the Bible. I felt that I knew the truth. I needed only to read things that helped me to understand that truth better. There was no point in reading contrary ideas, as the author didn't understand the starting point for finding truth. I didn't see refusal to look at contrary ideas as blindly following what I wanted to see, which it was, but rather I saw it as filtering out what I already knew to be false. Sort of like today, I would never read a book by a flat earther, as I know flat earth is false. Such a book cannot be taken seriously. I would read it for the purpose of refuting it, but that's the only reason. And this is why I saw, and the young earthers today see, any material that disagrees with the Bible. It's not that they want to remain blind to other ideas, although this is true, it's not the way they see it. It's that they don't want to be bothered with what they feel is a waste of time, as they already know it's not true. Most young Earth creationists have a rudimentary understanding of evolution. It's hard to get through high school without learning some of it. An essential part of young Earth teaching is that transitional species don't exist. One of the articles on the Kids Answers website says, "The Bible clearly teaches there are no missing links between apes and humans." When Robin heard this and then looked up missing link and found that they really did exist.
Oh! If your elitist East Coast evolution is real, why has no one found the missing link between modern humans and ancient apes?
We did find it. It's called Homo erectus.
Then you have proven my case, sir. For no one has found the link between apes and this Homo erectus.
Yes, they have. It's called Homo habilis.
Aha! But no one has found the missing link between ape and the so-called Homo habilis.
Yes, they have. It's called Australopithecus africanus.
Oh, I've got you now. Fair enough. But where then is the missing
That was the end of young Earth for him. He says his reaction was, oh, evolution is real? Christianity must be false. Neat. For me, it was seeing lungfish at the Shed Aquarium. If there's someone in your life that is a young earther that you want to convince to think otherwise, I don't recommend sending them reading material. They will likely reject it as not starting from the right place. It's better to confront them with physical things that have no perspective on their own existence. Mud skippers are another good one. It is very hard to deny that a fish can leave the water and live on dry land while watching a mud skipper. A third is this chart. It shows different ancient primate skulls and asks scientists, some of them creationists, which were ape and which are human. Despite the creationists' insistence that the differentiation between the two is clear, they were unable to consistently classify the fossils. The line between ape and man is indistinguishable because it is non-existent. We are apes. Lutz also says, if kids get Bible teaching in just one class or in church, they are tempted to believe secular authorities in other areas like science, math, and history, even if what those subjects say conflicts with God's Word. This goes against God's instruction to integrate the Bible into every aspect of our lives. And here is the crux of the problem. Because of this belief, ideas about God are woven into the curriculum in every subject. On the Kids Answers website, every card has something to say about God. The only way to fully indoctrinate your kids is to weave the teaching into everything they hear. Then they are unlikely to let go of it when it starts to crumble. Sadly, I did this to my own children. Sorry, kids. Another thing that makes this so hard to let go of is summed up by Henry Rambo in his book Confessions of a Rogue Missionary. To lose one's faith is to lose one's reason to live. I clung to this idea for decades, that I had to believe because without God I had no reason to live. You hear Ken Ham say it frequently, but it's not true. Breaking free of faith didn't leave me feeling that I had no reason to live. Quite the opposite. I feel more alive today than I ever did as a believer. I am free to explore new ideas about who I am as my own person and not as a servant of God. I want to focus on the card from Answers in Genesis website under Answers, then Science, Astronomy, Particles from Distant Space. This article says, for the first time, scientists have traced the possible origin of a subatomic particle that came from outside our galaxy. If astronomers are right in their calculations, this neutrino traveled approximately 3.7 billion light years before reaching us. How could this possibly be in an Earth that's only 6,000 years old? Indeed. It's essentially the same question that people ask about the travel of starlight from galaxies that are of similar distances away. Creationists have proposed several viable explanations for straight travel based on relativity or other factors, which would explain distant neutrinos as well. Different problem, same answers. So what is the answer? There's nothing here. Maybe they don't think the kids are ready for it. So what do they give the kids? Every time a new question arises that causes people to question the Bible, we need to turn to the first principles. God's word is true. And every time we learn more about the universe, we confirm its truth. In areas where our knowledge is limited, we need to trust the one with limitless knowledge. Translation: don't ask questions, kid. You're bothering me. Just believe it because we said so. This isn't teaching academics. It's blind faith, and it's science denial. They clearly have the evidence right here in front of them that the Earth has been around for at least 3.7 billion years. But they're sticking to deny it because I say so. Under your big questions, it says, why do so many scientists say humans evolved? Sadly, many scientists don't believe the Bible is God's word. They don't believe Genesis or creation, and the only choice they have left is to believe we evolved. Actually, if we just wanted to pull theories out of our asses with no scientific proof for any of it, we could get a lot more creative than evolution. Some of the creation myths from other cultures and religions are good examples. It would be much more entertaining to tell kids that a giant elephant farted all the animals into existence. They'd be rolling on the floor laughing and would likely never to forget that theory. So no, scientists don't believe evolution because it's the only thing left to believe if you reject the Bible. Not to mention that there are plenty of scientists that do embrace both God and evolution. AIG is quick to deny that anyone who doesn't believe in young Earth is a real Christian. This actually is why the pastor of one of the churches I attended didn't support AIG, since AIG rejects as Christian so many current Christian scholars. He felt that Ken Ham and AIG couldn't be taken seriously. Teaching kids to deny science leaves behind a myriad of problems. It's how we end up with flat earthers and anti-vaxxers. The flat earthers are mostly harmless conspiracy theorists, but the anti-vaxxers are downright dangerous. They don't vaccinate their children, exposing them to horrible diseases unnecessarily. They also expose other children to those same diseases when they go to school, children that because of medical issues can't be vaccinated. They have caused diseases that were once almost eradicated, like measles, to make a comeback. Mumps and pertussis are also on the rise thanks to anti-vaxxers. Science denial has led people to denying the pandemic, distrusting scientists when they tell you to wear a mask and social distance. Even our president has showed himself repeatedly to be a science denier. He refuses to accept what the scientists tell him about the pandemic, and he refuses to accept the science of climate change.
That was part of a 60 Minutes interview that Trump did last night. He sat down with Leslie Stahl for a wide-ranging discussion that included topics like global warming, and at one point Trump denied that he was a denier.
I'm not denying climate change, but it could very well go back. You know, we're talking about over millions of years. They say that we had hurricanes that were far worse than what we just had with Michael.
Who says that? They say. You mean the people on the phone?
People say that.
Yes, Leslie. People, they say it. And as we know, Trump gets all the latest scientific information from the proceedings of the National Academy of people who say that.
While the pandemic is currently our most pressing need, climate change will ultimately be the make or break issue for our planet. I will be gone before we reach this point. It is my children and grandchildren that will have to tackle this issue in earnest. First, to the next generations, I say I'm sorry. My generation has messed up this planet and we leave it to you to fix. In our defense, we had no clue how badly we were messing things up. As we started to hear about it, I thought they were talking about something that was at least a millennium into the future. We felt the depletion of fossil fuels was our greatest issue, and that by the time climate change started to become a reality, having found cleaner fuel sources would have solved the problem. But we were so wrong. The effects of climate change are too obvious for any but the willfully blind to see. The increase in fires in California and the huge uptake in hurricanes are undeniable. Next time, I will be discussing climate change with Mama Atheist. For now, we need to stop indoctrinating our kids to deny science. Their survival may depend on it. We want them, and you, to have the opportunity to live your life.